Standing on the veranda of our seaside villa, I clutched my phone tightly, the cool ocean breeze doing little to calm the storm inside me. The screen glowed with my father's name, and I could feel the anger simmering, coiling like a serpent deep in my chest. "You went ahead and did whatever you wanted, didn't you?" I demanded, my voice shaking slightly, betraying more emotion than I intended. On the other end, I could hear his slow, measured breathing. "Daniel, Margaret, I thought you'd understand. Diana needs the money. If we don't cover her debt, well, it's only natural for a family to help one another," my father replied, his tone steady, as if reciting a fact rather than acknowledging the violation of our trust. I let out a bitter laugh that barely carried across the balcony. The usual family card. I am Margaret Moore, eldest child of parents who adored my 2 years younger sister, Diana. Growing up, this pattern of favoritism was evident in every corner of my childhood. My earliest memory of inequality was my 5th birthday. I had been ecstatic when my parents presented me with the red bicycle I had dreamed about for months. My joy, however, was fleeting. Diana, ever the opportunist, immediately set her sights on it. "Diana wants it, doesn't she?" My father had shrugged. "You're the older sister. Let her have it." And just like that, my prized birthday gift became hers. My small protest fell on deaf ears. This pattern repeated over the years, a constant reminder that my desires were secondary to Diana's whims. When I entered elementary school, the same story played out. The pencil case I had been given as a gift for starting school caught Diana's eye. I was made to swap it, my parents' reasoning echoing. "Diana is still young. She wants what you have." Extracurriculars were always about Diana, too. My attempts to enroll in swimming lessons were instantly dismissed. "We're already spending on Diana's piano lessons," my parents said. "Besides, she would feel lonely if you weren't spending time with her." Piano, ballet, painting, every activity had Diana's name on it. Meanwhile, my own interests outside school clubs were neglected. Whenever I finished my homework and wanted to go out to play, I was told, "Help Diana with her studies." Even at school events, this disparity persisted. Our parents attended Diana's performances and competitions without fail, but mine were overlooked. When I won first place in a race on sports day, no one noticed. When I delivered a speech during an open school day, my parents skipped it to attend Diana's piano recital. By 6th grade, when I was elected class representative, I didn't even tell them. I had learned the lesson early. Nothing I did was ever their priority. High school only amplified this inequity. During my 3rd year, I worked tirelessly to secure a spot at my first-choice university. When I finally received the acceptance letter, my parents' reaction was lukewarm. "Oh, that's nice," my mother said indifferently. "I'm more interested in Diana's mock test. Results." Dinner that night revolved entirely around Diana. She received all her favorite dishes while my accomplishments faded into background noise. Even Christmas wasn't spared. While Diana unwrapped luxurious gifts, I received practical items, stationery, clothes, small necessities. Travel expenses for my club competitions were denied. The money was needed for Diana's piano lessons. The message was clear. Diana was precious, fragile, and deserving of indulgence. I was expected to sacrifice quietly. By the time I entered university, I had largely severed the emotional connection with my family. That was when Ken entered my life. I met him at the windsurfing club as a freshman, a complete beginner constantly at the mercy of crashing waves. Ken, older and seasoned, was the captain of the club. On my very first day, I was thrown into the water repeatedly, swallowing salt water, stinging eyes, aching muscles. Just as I was ready to give up, he extended a hand. "Everyone starts like this," he said, a reassuring smile on his face. I fell all day when I was a freshman, too. Those words were a lifeline. For once, someone met struggle with patience instead of impatience. Our bond grew over countless practices, moments of shared laughter, and gentle guidance. On the final day of a training camp at dusk, I faced a personal turning point. I had failed to stand even once on the board all day. The waves seemed insurmountable. Then Ken shouted from the shore, "Margaret, the wind is shifting." Something clicked. The rhythm of the waves, the motion of the board. And suddenly, I was standing. I was riding the waves. My teammates cheered, but the only thing I saw was Ken's beaming face. "Don't tense up," he advised. Feel the waves and move with them. His words stayed with me, a metaphor for my life. No one had ever treated me with such care, focusing on my growth rather than my failures. He believed in me when no one else did. Months later, we began dating. After university, we transformed our shared passion for marine sports into a business, founding an import company. Starting was grueling. I juggled 3 part-time jobs while Ken borrowed money from family. Our first office was a cramped apartment 30 minutes from the nearest station, furnished with second-hand desks and cabinets. We faced rejection after rejection. "You're too young, no experience, no track record," was the constant refrain. But we persisted, building relationships with athletes and suppliers, eventually securing an exclusive distribution deal with a small Australian manufacturer. That contract marked the true beginning of our journey. Even then, my parents dismissed our efforts. "How do you plan to survive with such an unstable business?" My father scoffed. "Diana needs help," my mother added, their minds entirely consumed by my sister, who had dropped out of university and drifted from one part-time job to the next, accumulating debts that my parents always bailed her out from. Ken, however, believed in me. "If it's us, we can make it happen," he said. With that, we tackled every challenge together. The company, once a tiny warehouse operation, grew steadily. 5 years ago, we finally realized a shared dream, purchasing a vacation home perched on a hill overlooking the ocean. Its view took my breath away. Ken said, "This is the one," and I thought exactly the same. My parents opposed it once again. Too expensive, unnecessary. But their disapproval no longer mattered. This was our achievement, a testament to our perseverance. On our first night there, we sat on the deck beneath a star-filled sky, listening to the waves. Ken held my hand. "Margaret, let's grow old together here," he whispered, and those words still warm my heart. Everything shattered with a single phone call from my father. It was the morning after my return from a business trip to Southeast Asia. "Margaret, I need to talk to you," he said, voice attempting calm authority. "Did something happen?" I asked casually, unaware that my world was about to collapse. "It's about your vacation home," he said. The words hit me like a blow. "I've already sold it. Ownership transfers next month." For a moment, I couldn't process his meaning. "Sold? Transfer? Our home?" My voice trembled. "What are you talking about?" "Diana is in trouble. She failed at an investment and now has $200,000 in debt," he explained, as though this justified his actions. I gritted my teeth. "And what does that have to do with our home?" "Margaret, Diana needs money," he repeated, his tone forceful. "You went ahead and did this without even consulting us?" I said, my grip tightening on the balcony railing. "You barely used the home," he insisted, trying to rationalize. "Diana's life is at stake." "That's Diana's problem," I said through clenched teeth. "To sell the vacation home without our consent, how could you proceed?" There was a pause. "I had your signatures. The documents were already prepared," he admitted, the first hint of hesitation in his voice. My heart raced as the reality set in. "This is fraud. An unauthorized sale is a crime. I'm calling the police," I said firmly, holding onto the railing for support. "You can't," he gasped. "It's a family matter." "No," I said, voice icy and resolute. "This is a crime. Dad, Mom, it's time to stop cleaning up Diana's messes." Before me stretched the vacation home Ken and I had worked tirelessly to achieve, a sanctuary where we had dreamed, windsurfed, and envisioned our future together, at the stars while sharing our hopes for the future. "Margaret, we're family, aren't we? Helping each other is what family does." My father pleaded, his voice shifting to a tone of desperation. "Yes, we're family," I said, letting out a deep sigh. "And that's why I have to report you and Mom for fraud." As I ended the call, only the sound of the waves remained in the air. The salty breeze cooled my flushed cheeks. I couldn't believe my parents had sunk this low. Their twisted devotion to Diana had finally crossed an unforgivable line, perhaps. In part, one was to blame for not stopping them sooner, but enough was enough. I slipped my phone into my pocket and returned inside the vacation home an hour. Later, my phone rang again. This time it was Ken. "Margaret, are you okay?" Hearing his voice, I felt a little calmer. "Yes, I just finished talking to my father. I got a call from the potential buyer." Ken said, his voice Steady, it turns out they're one of my younger friends. From university, when I explained the situation, they understood immediately. The sale has been called off. I let out a deep sigh of relief. At least that was one problem solved, thank you. Ken, I also heard from the police they found the FORG documents your parents used. His words made my chest tighten. How far are you willing to fall, Dad and Mom? Ken arrived at the vacation home later. That evening, even in the middle of his workday, he had come to check on me out of concern. Are you okay? He asked, his gentle voice bringing me a much-needed sense of comfort. Ken gently embraced me, within his arms. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. Why? Why would they do this? Do they think they can do anything? As long as it's for Diana. Margaret. Ken stroked my hair as he spoke softly. You've done nothing wrong, in fact. I'm proud of you for standing your ground. Those words soaked into my heart. The following day, the police launched a full-scale investigation. My parents were subjected to questioning on charges of attempted fraud. My mother called me repeatedly, but I didn't answer. A week has passed since. Then on the deck of the vacation home, we watched the sunset over the ocean, the sound of waves crashing against the shore quietly soothed my heart. I remember, Ken said quietly. The day we found this place I remembered too. The day we toured the property. We decided on the spot. Though the house was old, fixing it up became part of our memories. Were painted. The railings replaced the floorboards and renovated the kitchen. Every bit of work was done by the two office. Sometimes we argued, but even those moments now feel nostalgic. Margaret, Ken said, holding my hand, we're in this together. Whatever challenges come our way, we'll face them as a team. I nodded. My relationship with my parents may never return to what it once was. But that's okay. This is our life, our choices, and this seaside vacation home is the proof of our love. Meanwhile, the police investigation progressed steadily. As I'd unfolded more details about my parents' actions came to light. They had known from the beginning that the property was jointly owned by Keen and me. Yet they proceeded with the sale anyway. The forgery of documents was carefully planned. It was revealed that during their explanation to the prospective buyer, they provided false information they had been preparing for. This for 3 months. First, they forged my signature. Then they skillfully imitated Ken's signature to falsify the agreement of sale to the real estate agent. They lied, saying our daughter and her partner are being relocated overseas and can no longer manage the property. The most shocking revelation was that my mother had spread rumors in the neighborhood. She claimed Margaret and her husband racked up debts and are forcing us to clean up after them. She was willing to tarnish her own daughter's reputation just to protect Diana. Diana got involved in a fraudulent investment scheme. My mother reportedly confessed tearfully. During the police questioning, it was supposed to be just 10,000 at first. But before we knew it, it had become $200,000. My parents had drained their savings and sold off land to cover the debt. Even that wasn't enough. So they tried to sell our vacation home to make up the difference. Diana isn't to blame. My mother insisted during questioning. She was just tricked. She's not as smart as Margaret. It was said that even the officer conducting the interrogation was left speechless by her words. My emotions were complicated. I could hardly believe my own parents had resorted to such actions. Then one day Diana contacted me. How could you do this? Sis, turning our parents over to the police is cruel. Her victim mentality was as present as ever. I responded calmly. Diana, do you realize they tried to sell the vacation home? I cherish just to cover your debt. That's a crime. But we're family, aren't? I'm really struggling here. It's time. You started taking responsibility for your actions. I'm done cleaning up after you after hanging up an overwhelming fatigue washed over me. Since childhood, Diana had been coddled by our parents. While I studied diligently and worked hard at my job, Diana lived recklessly, relying on our parents to bail her out, every time she failed. I'd lost count of how many times Diana had racked up debt. It started with a student loan during her first year of college. Initially, it was a small amount, $3,000 from a consumer finance company. Her reason to go shopping for luxury brands with friends instead of scolding my parents excused her behavior, saying, "She's just a young girl. It can't be helped," and paid off the debt immediately. 2 months later, we discovered she had misused her tuition money. It had been spent on trips with friends and new clothes. My father dipped into his savings to cover the $30,000 shortfall. Diana lacks life experience, they said. It's natural she doesn't understand the value of money rather than reprimand. Her parents defended her with excuses in her 3rd year. Diana abruptly announced she was dropping out of college. Her reason: "I can't keep up with the classes." Shortly after, she began working part-time at a restaurant there. She started dating a customer, eventually introduced her to an investment scheme, and she lost $38,000. "You wouldn't understand, Margaret, because you're so smart," Diana said, glaring at me as if I were the problem. "He's the only one I have." My parents begged her to break up with him and managed to persuade her. But once again, they paid off her debt. Their retirement savings were nearly depleted, and now this duped by another fraudulent investment scheme. Diana had accrued $200 in debt. This time my parents had no means left to cover it, so they turned to selling our vacation home. They spoiled her too much, I had always pointed out. But my mother would shake her head. "Diana is a fragile girl. We have to protect her." My parents' excessive devotion to Diana was destroying her. She lacked any sense of personal responsibility, repeating the same mistakes while insisting I'm the victim. When I decided to start my own business, my parents vehemently opposed it. "You should just join a stable company," they said. "You need to be responsible for Diana too." But I had already escaped from that curse with then. As my partner and supporter, I had begun to walk my own path. And yet my parents tried to take away the place that meant so much to use. In the end, the total debt, as far as I knew, exceeded $400. Or every time my parents defended Diana as the poor girl and continued to clean up her messes. "Diana isn't at fault. Society is just too harsh." "You're lucky, Margaret, so you should help." Those words now echoed with bitter irony. In the end, my parents ruined Diana's life by spoiling her, and now they were trying to destroy ours as well. "Maybe they never really accepted what we do for a living," Ken said seriously. He was right. Their attempt to sell the vacation home was just an extension of their lack of understanding. Perhaps that's why they were able to decide so easily to get rid of something we cherished, but that's their problem. I said firmly, "Our bond is something no one can break." Ken smiled gently. That smile always gave me strength. We had our own path. Theme memories etched into this vacation home were proof of that. As autumn deepened, the sea grew rougher. Little by little we sat close together on the deck, watching the sunset over the ocean. My relationship with my parents and Diana would likely never return to what it once was. But that was my choice. The final report from the police arrived with the onset of winter. My parents were prosecuted and received a suspended sentence. I discarded their apology letters without reading them, sometimes forgiving. Only enables the repetition of wrongdoing. That was a lesson I had learned. A year has passed since then, according to a neighbor who spoke to my mother's friend. My parents are still struggling to repay their debts after the fraudulent sale of the vacation home was exposed. My father had to resign from his job. My mother now juggles 3 part-time jobs, early mornings at a warehouse, packing at a food factory during the day, and working the register at a 24-hour supermarket at night. I heard the Moores are having a tough time. I overheard a housewife gossiping near the supermarket register, where my mother worked. She has lost so much weight. Their family home has already been sold, and my parents and Diana now live in a cheap apartment on the outskirts of town. Their retirement savings and all their funds were depleted, and they took on more debt to pay off. Diana's? Margaret, can't you help? Your parents' relatives called me. Multiple times with the same question, and every time I gave the same answer, they'll have to solve their problems on their own. Diana hasn't changed. She met Aman at a nightclub and is now considering another investment scheme. This time, it's foolproof. I'm definitely going to make money when my parents tried to stop. Her Diana lashed out. I'm struggling, and you're acting like Margaret so cold-hearted, just help me. But my parents no longer had the means to support Diana. They were barely managing to keep up with monthly repayments my father had taken on. A night security job working weekends without a break. My mother spent her days scoring supermarket sales. For discounted items she can't afford, to be picky, neighbors would say, though she was once seen crying alone on the roadside late at night. Diana, angry at being abandoned by my parents, directed all her fury toward me. This is all your fault, is reporting them to the police ruined. Everything we could have solved it all, just by selling that stupid vacation. Home one day, I ran into my mother at the supermarket. She was unrecognizable, her hair now white, her back hunched. When our eyes met, she hurried away, avoiding me. Her shopping basket was filled with soon-to-expire discounted food items. My father, meanwhile, reportedly collapsed during his late-night security shift. The diagnosis was overwork. Still, he returned to work without rest, knowing that if they fell behind on payments, the collection calls would never stop at the end of the year. I received an email from Diana. Margaret lend me $50,000. I promise I can turn everything around with it. She had maxed out her consumer loans. Her credit cards were municipal. There was no one left, friends or acquaintances she could borrow from. Cornered. Diana was turning to me for help. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent my parents information on counseling and debt relief services. That was the most I could do for them. Now, I didn't realize what was happening before it got this bad. The words of my mother's friend lingered painfully in my heart. But this was the path my parents had chosen. Their blind devotion to Diana had ultimately brought the entire family to ruin. Seaside deeply. As I gazed out at the ocean, at night, Ken came up behind me and gently placed his arms around my shoulders. You're not at fault, he said. I nodded quietly at his words. I had made the right choice. It was a painful but necessary decision. I've been thinking, Ken said, his expression serious. What if we use this vacation home as a venue for charity events? Charity. Yes, let's give underprivileged kids the chance to experience marine sports. I was deeply moved by his suggestion, having experienced the loneliness of being misunderstood by my own family. I wanted to support children who felt the same isolation. That's a wonderful idea, I said. Ken continued. Your parents saw this place as nothing more than a piece of real estate, but to use, it's a place of dreams. If we could share that dream with others. I took his hand in mine. Cannon always understood the deepest corners of my heart. Let's do it, I said with determination. We changed into our wetsuits, riding the waves. Felt a pure sense of happiness. Yes, my relationship with my biological family was lost, but I had chosen my path, and that choice wasn't a mistake. Listening to the sound of the waves, we look toward the future. This vacation home will continue to nurture our dreams, and now it will also become a place of hope for others pursuing dreams of their own.